Greetings, I'm Skylar Lehman, founder of Mission Advancement, and I'm excited to tell you about Mission Advancement's Summer Break Series. It's our alternative version of webinars that we've historically brought to you, and I know you're probably used to seeing me more in a head and shoulders environment with a sport coat on in an office setting, and we've decided to loosen it up and in the spirit of kind of taking a summer break to come at you a little bit more creatively. So we're going to be doing this multi-part series in this very kind of studio sort of setup in a backyard that is going to intentionally be more relaxed. It's going to be more discussion formatted with multiple members of our team presenting to you, but hopefully we'll still bring you some helpful information on meaningful topics that will help you in your journey to be an effective development professional, help you to succeed in your capital campaign initiatives or any other thing that might be related to the funding side of your mission. All right, welcome to the Summer Break Series over the summer from Mission Advancement. Throw me the ball. Yeah, right, on cue. We are so glad that you've taken some time to join us for this first in a series of episodes about summer break, kind of break themed. And this first episode that we're going to deal with today is about taking a break. So it's pretty profound and pretty fundamental in terms of what this whole summer break series is about. And with me are Scott Taylor, the guy who runs Mission Advancement's client service work entirely, and one of his chief right arms is Aaron Sampson, Austin-based, but who also manages much of our work and leads some of our very important projects. And I'm grateful that we can kind of have a conversation today and enjoy the summer break. And so we'll just bounce this ball around. There it goes. And that's proof, again, that this is not just a green screen, right? So obviously, this is much more relaxed than you might be accustomed to with our webinars. Normally, it's a pretty defined frame, and it's me sitting behind a desk speaking at you for the better part of an hour. We're going to be much shorter in these episodes and have fun with it a little bit and just kind of have some good conversation. This time of year, which is springtime, it's obviously very warm outside and we're celebrating the festiveness of the time. Makes us all think of when we start slowing down and taking breaks, right, with our families, planning family vacations, kids are getting out of school, that sort of thing. I know that's important to my family, but we'll kind of bounce it around here, and I'll throw to Scott, and then Scott can throw to Aaron, and just talk about what the value is of kind of getting away annually like that in a chunk of time.
Yeah, so I think for our family, it's the shutdown. I think I have teenagers, and so we're in that phase where all the nighttime activities during school and the daytime activities with work, and so summertime creates that opportunity, especially for us, to where everything can just shut down for a minute. And so the value for us is being able to turn off some of what happens in everyday normal life and really pour into each other in different ways. And we have the same chaos that every other family has, where kids want to punch each other in the throat and whatnot, and it's all, but it's still quality time that breaks up the norm and almost provides a reset for us.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Punch each other in the throat. Aaron, I know your family is young, and family vacations, I'm sure, are very special. But what value does that bring to you and in your kind of cadence, your annual cadence?
Right. Yeah. Similar to Scott, is just being able to, when school gets out, the daily routine that we don't have to get up as early as we were getting up, and so having that ability to be flexible with our time and enjoy the kids so that we can go on vacations and fully shut down and be gone for a week or two at a time, is really important. And And summer's just long enough that, after a few weeks, then I'm ready to send them back to school come August. So.
I hear you. And if you're like most people, and Scott, to be fair, your kids are still relatively young. When you guys get back from a vacation, you probably feel like you need a vacation from the vacation, right? That's probably not an uncommon feeling for people that go away. So it gives you a break, but it doesn't necessarily give you the rest and relaxation that you really are looking for, probably.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. For me, that reminds me of when I was in those fundraising roles, not in the consulting roles, but more in those fundraising roles. You would have your opportunity to go on vacation, and you would get your week or whatever it is that you took, and you would leave, but everything that happened while you were gone just collected on your desk. And so those last 2 days of vacation, you were dreading because you knew what you were kind of coming back to. And so it made it really difficult to be able to really enjoy the entire time frame of that vacation and want to even take a vacation in some cases. And so I've learned to figure out the value of the team structure and how do we help each other? How do we spread the load so that everybody gets that chance? Because if everybody doesn't get that chance, you don't get that reset. You don't get that refresh to kind of start over again. And I don't care what position you're in development. Everybody needs that chance. And so there's got to be some balance there of how we cover for each other as team members.
Aaron, your family's, as I've said, you have young kids, and you gear up for this sort of thing, and you prepare for it, and you go away. Do you shut it down? I mean, are you good about shutting it down, or are you one of these people who sits on the beach and sort of scrolls through email and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
So.
I think I used to be, and I have before in my life, but as I've gotten older, my kids are getting older, I really see the value and the importance of turning it off, and really relying on the team. And so, if you don't have that team that you can rely on, it does make it harder. So, working within your development team to find that person that you can rely on to help, then you really can shut off and be present with your family because, I've heard that saying, you only get 18 summers with them before they're gone. And that kind of hits close to home where you're like, that's not very long at all. So enjoying the summers and the time that you do have.
I guess your worst nightmare is if you get 26, 28 summers. So.
I don't want to think about that.
I agree. My family's pretty good about taking a break and sort of shutting it down and not. In fact, one of my very favorite things to do is to hit the out of office reply, and then change your voicemail on your cell phone so that you kind of have permission to not answer because you know that they're going to get the message that you're actually checking out.
Yeah.
So obviously taking a break literally through the summer is kind of what's on our hearts and minds right now because that's the season that we're in. But that pertains almost to work-life balance issues. And hopefully, all of our development professionals also kind of have to pay attention to that work-life balance and make sure that they have time to kind of take breaks. But what I want to do is kind of transition from that particular issue, which is, I think, a pretty commonsensical issue. Most people get their arms around this need to take that break. But when you think about the work segment of your time, and for most of us at Mission Advancement, that comprises, I'm going to say, at least 40 hours, sometimes 50, 60 hours a week, and not by design, but sometimes by necessity. And I'm guessing that pertains to most of the development professionals with whom we communicate and to whom we provide counsel on a regular basis, is building some time, some breaks into the work segments and the value that brings. And so let me kind of take that idea and throw it to each of you to respond a little bit about, especially as you relate to the clients that you consult, and think you're probably going to be thinking of some faces of development directors in particular.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, one thing that I used to try to do and would encourage development officers to do is to find that time to, work from home, maybe one day a week if you don't already have some of that, because we find so often is when you are in the office, it can be very difficult to get things done. So if you can take that day to go, work from home, make your phone calls you need to make, and write your thank you notes that you just haven't found the time to write, and then that you have some of that ability to take more breaks throughout the day and maybe go for a quick walk, and I would encourage anybody to do that at your office as well. Finding 15-20 minutes to step away from your desk and recharge and refresh for a minute. Looking for opportunities like that so that you aren't burning yourself out.
And what do you do with that 15 minutes?
So, I personally like to listen to a podcast or a book on tape. But, it could just be my thoughts, too, sometimes.
So, but you're truly looking for a diversion, something to kind of get your mind off of work. Scott?
Yeah. So two things. For me personally, it is the diversion. Like I need that every day. And I learned that for myself early in my career because I was trying that work all day thing with no gaps, no breaks. And it was just burning me out on a daily basis, which cumulatively led to extraordinary burnout. And so I learned to value those gaps of time. But even with our clients, one of the things that I see is we will be in these work sessions where we're going 2 or 3 hours at a time, brainstorming or whiteboarding or whatever it is, and we'll get to a place where everybody's just kind of maxed out, and we'll just have to say time out. Everybody's maxed out. You can see the eyes glazing over, and we've all felt that in our own daily work. Looking at the computer, you're just like, I'm so tired of doing this. We will do a physical timeout and say, everybody just go take 15 minutes, walk around the building, do whatever you need to do, but then let's come back and restart our work. And it is always shocking, it shouldn't be anymore, but it is always shocking to me how we can come back from just that 15 minutes and how much more productive the group is as a whole.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, interesting. That's a great kind of strategic tactic, I would think, to build into long times together and long meetings. I know that you guys may or may not know this about my past, but there was a time in my life where I actually did triathlons. Now, I know probably you're looking at me going, of course. I mean, come on, a build like this? It was many moons ago, and I didn't do them fast, okay, but I did complete a few. But where this is going is I would take these, I had to learn how to swim open water. So in other words, instead of swimming in a swimming pool or like a lap pool where we've all swam in before, where you see the lines underneath you and you have the goggles on, and all you have to do is follow that line as you're kind of swimming. When you're in open water, you have no guidance other than to follow the swimmers in front of you. And believe me, almost all of them were in front of me. But what I learned very quickly is as you're swimming in open water, if you don't stop every 30 seconds or so and sort of stop, tread water, put your head up and look at where you're going, you can very quickly get off course. It's not natural to just swim in a perfect line. And I remember experiencing that and sometimes looking up and finding that I had veered off, 10, 20 feet off of the line that I was supposed to be on. And I remember the weeks following that, thinking back on it and applying that kind of sort of metaphor, if you will, to my work week and thinking, if I don't take a break once in a while and sort of stick my head up above the routine, and I know this is true for so many of the development officers that I've had the honor and privilege of working with over time, is that people get sucked into the weeds and the details so much that sometimes they lose sight of the direction that they're on. Right. So talk a little bit about the value of breaks from that perspective, kind of regaining course. Right.
Yeah, I think, similar to, staying on track is coming up for a breath for a little bit. And in the development work, it can be a daily grind that is easy to get sucked into lots of other things. that if you don't come up and look where you're going, it can be detrimental. And so finding the ways to take those breaks, whether it's, at the beginning of the week, sitting down and making sure that you know what your goals for that week are that get you to your bigger goals, or maybe it's on a during the end of the week or middle of the week, finding ways to incorporate that in. And if it's might be that opportunity, like I mentioned, to work from home, to be able to really regain focus and attention. So finding ways to incorporate that.
So long as you don't have kids coming up to you every
second. Hopefully they're at school.
Say, Mom, Mom. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so as I think about your analogy, I have to imagine that going into a triathlon, you go into it with some kind of game plan, right? You know what kind of time you want to make on the bike or on swimming or the running, and
survive. That was my
yeah. But at certain points, there is that stop down of am I on track for what I'm trying to accomplish, so I don't burn myself out and not make it or whatever. We have the same thing in business. So whether it's fundraising or consulting, what are those checkpoints? And I see them more as yes, we got the weeklies, right? Where am I headed for the week? But I kind of pull back out a little bit and say, as a fundraiser, how am I doing on a quarterly basis? Because I know what I'm trying to accomplish for my year. And so one of the things that I like to see with our clients and that we coach and counsel to a lot is, what's that quarterly stop down? If you own, for example, if you're responsible for a portfolio, what's that moment in time in the quarter at which you say, okay, how am I doing for what I have planned for my portfolio? Has it worked the way I thought? Do I need to make an adjustment? Who do I have planned to make a solicitation to for the next quarter? Or there's usually a plan that goes with that. But if you just go careening throughout the year without ever stopping for a minute, whether it's a half day or a quarter of a day, but some moment in time where you stop and say, how am I doing to my plan? Then with your swim analogy, you're going to end up, 50 yards offshore when you should have been 20, or whatever the course is. And so those stop downs, they're too critical for your success, whether it's fundraising or if you're in the data space of portfolio management and supporting that process. There's got to be that point at which you stop and say, are we on track towards what we were trying to accomplish?
Indeed. So you guys know most of my history in terms of professional history anyway. And there was a time right before I started Mission Advancement where for a couple of years I served in a development role. I was honored to work for one of the largest charities in America and to run their development operation. Bad thing is they were located on the West Coast, and I remained here in Texas, and so every week I commuted on a long flight to and from Washington State, and so that afforded me what was 3.5, 4 hours of flight time on a Sunday night or Monday morning, and again on a Friday night or a Saturday morning, kind of coming home. And good news and bad news. So here's the bad news. I got so much sympathy. Oh my gosh, everybody felt sorry for me. I got all this crazy, and so people would bring me lunch when I was in Seattle. My wife would feel sorry for me when I got home, and so that was a made for life to be pretty cushy. The good news is I didn't understand what a gift the commuting time really was. When I knew I was going to be stuck in an airplane seat for 4 hours, I would take that 4 hours to objectively kind of look at the week ahead and look at the calendar and remember kind of what my primary goals were, what I was trying to achieve, and measure what was on my calendar to whether or not it aligned. Am I wasting my time on these things, or are these things that truly lead to my goals? And I had that on the way there, which helped me kind of sometimes reorder the week on the way there, and then to debrief about it on the way home. And so, it was tough traveling, but life was good. Talk to me a little bit about what you see going on in the practice in development directors and either the practice of that kind of breaks or the lack thereof.
Yeah, more frequently than not, it's the lack thereof. Everybody, I think the typical thing in the nonprofit industry is that everybody has more than they can say grace over. And I think that's just the nature of our work. And so you get into this cliched rat race of, I just don't have time to take time, right? And that is one of the things that we, I think, struggle through the most with our clients, is helping them figure out how to break up that time to get the quality thinking time. Because at least what I see, and I would like to know your thoughts on this too, Aaron, but what I see is there's lots of activity, but there's not a lot of that thinking space of, what should I be doing? What should I be focusing on? Where should my attention be? Whether it's for the week ahead or for the quarter ahead or just for our roles in general, there's some really critical questions that we ought to be asking ourselves on a regular basis that the rat race makes you think, oh, I don't have time to ask those questions. And I think that's one of the areas where we could see the most lift out of an organization is if people were able to find and understand, man, just that hour, that 2 hours on you had a plane ride. Not everybody gets that, right? Yeah. So how do I carve out that kind of time? But boy, if you don't, it's just the rat race.
Yeah, and I would encourage the small development shop person that isn't that by themselves, and it's really hard to get away sometimes, is to, find a peer or a mentor that you can sit down with and talk about ways to either take breaks or do the, to help them see your big picture and help you look futuristically. Because sometimes you just need another set of eyes on it. Two heads better than one.
Yeah.
Agreed. Scott, you mentioned a moment ago that there was a couple of questions that you ought to be asking yourself. I'm going to ask both of you to reflect on this, but probably fresher in your mind, and Aaron, give you a moment to kind of think. But if you had to think of a question or two that, while you have that sort of, I call it feet on your desk time, where you can literally close the door and lean back in your chair and put your hands behind your head and sort of look at the ceiling for a little bit, what are the questions to kind of ask yourself in that time?
So one of the things that, this is an exercise I just did for myself, but I've also done it with, in the organizational context of the development operation. And this also speaks to a little bit of what Aaron was saying just a second ago. I asked myself, what are the things that I love to do and I'm great at? What are the things I like to do and I'm good at? What are the things that I don't like to do but I'm good at? And what are the things that I hate to do and I'm terrible at? Right? So you kind of create these quadrants and then evaluate, is that really where I should be spending my time? Or are there other people that are better at those things that I should share those responsibilities with, to not only create more bandwidth for myself, but to create better operational efficiency for the organization as a whole? And we can do these same exercises and do in different ways with any one of the organizations that we work with. We call it a diagnostic, but it's us coming in and looking under the hood and saying, what are you doing? How are you spending your time? But not every development operation has the opportunity to hire someone like us. And so you have to have that moment where you're willing to say, let's stop for a minute. Let's take a break. Let's ask ourselves some of these key questions of what are we doing? Should we be doing it? Or should someone else? Do we have the right people? Yeah. Do we have enough people? The questions alone create a vision, at least, for where do we go from here? Yeah. And then you can start to plan from it. Yeah.
Good. Aaron, thoughts on questions?
I can't say it any better than Scott just said it. I think, sitting back and asking yourself questions of like, am I on track? what do I need to do? If you're off track, what do you need to do to get back on track? But I think Scott's, looking at the way that he explained it is a really great example.
Excellent. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up this first segment of taking a break. And obviously, it's not just about taking vacations, which we always like vacation. So please don't march into your boss and demand more vacation as a result of watching our this episode today. But more importantly, we would encourage you to build the discipline into your week, even into your day, of taking some time to rise above the minutia, get out of the weeds a bit, and to take a more strategic look at how you're spending your time and try to use it in that way. Thanks for joining us for this first episode of Taking a Break, Summer Break.
Thanks so much for joining us this week. We hope you had fun, maybe learned a little something. Just remember that all of these episodes are on our resources tab on our website, and go ahead and binge them, watch them, share them with your friends and colleagues in the nonprofit space. And we want to hear from you. So if you have questions, go ahead to our website at missionadvancement.com/summerbreak and go ahead and fill out that form and let us know what you have on your mind, and someone from our team will go ahead and answer you. And thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.